Major moves, we going all in, like we got nothing to lose. We making moves, we making major moves, we making moves, we making major moves, we making moves.
Welcome back to my channel. I want to thank you guys for actively deciding to spend time with me. I'm just a guy in a Spider-Man mask, a cool one I might add. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just providing information and content already on the internet, and I just read it and present it to you guys in a way that may reach you or may not reach you. Whatever the reason is you found my page, I'm grateful you're here, and thank you for spending time with me. Let's get into this.
All right, everybody, I am so excited to be sitting down with Mr. Man. He's one of the hardest working people in the crypto space. He has more gems than any buried treasure that you could find on the planet. I'm just thankful for his time. How are you doing, my friend? What's going on?
You know what? I'm loving life. I'm grateful. I'm blessed to be here to finally sit down and connect with you again and have the opportunity to redo what we had done. I think it was 2 months back now, and there's been a few roadblocks in front of us here, but I'm blessed to have you here with me again, and we can finally rock and push out some of these nuggets for the people that want to hear what we have to say.
I love it, man. I love it. Did you want to do your intro too, or what did you want to do?
I most definitely do.
Rock and roll, brother.
Welcome back to my channel. I am Mr. Man. I'm grateful to have all you guys here with me, and today I have a special guest with me. I got Crypto Sensei. It's been a few months actually since we had the chance to sit down and parlay here, so I feel honored to have him back here with us on our channel, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say to share with our community.
The honor's all mine.
All right, so let me just start. How's your day going today?
You know, it's been a little bit rough, man. My dog actually just injured herself, and we actually went down to the vet this morning, and she actually needs surgery on her rear paw. So that's been kind of an emotional day. But you know, got to get back, got to start recording stuff. So just kind of thoughts and prayers with Luna here right now. And other than that, man, just rocking and rolling, trying to understand where we're going here in life. But how are you, brother? How's it going with you?
You know what? I'm doing good. As we were talking about off mic, I'm just sitting here with my bowl of popcorn. Not actually like yourself. I got my water bottle here, but figuratively speaking, just eating out of my bowl of popcorn, just watching this fiasco unravel. Like, it's just I don't know. Like, we're out of the word of the day. You ever watch Pee Wee Herman back in the day?
Yeah.
The word of the day is inflection point, and I feel that's where we're at right now because it's hard to just not sit back and laugh at the atrocities taking place. It's just unreal.
It's everywhere too, isn't it? It doesn't matter what country you're in. There's some type of corruption or there's some type of malfeasance, and it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, right? You have people just trying to do bad things everywhere, and I feel like we're caught in like a life raft, and there's just 100-foot waves all around us, and we're just waiting to go under with all of this stuff, right? You got a government shutdown now coming again here in America, and two sides can't agree on anything, and it's just painful to watch, man, and we're along for the ride. That's all.
Yeah, man, and that shutdown's when October 1st, correct?
Yeah, and the pain will start when you have military, when they don't get paid. I think it's like the 12th or the 13th of October. That's when you're getting a lot of phone calls to Congress people and Senate people saying, hey, you guys better go out and get a deal, right? Because those people are essential services and they have to show up to work regardless. And you have other government officials too, right? Regular people like me and you that go to work every day and expect a paycheck. And when you enter into a government shutdown, nobody gets paid, right? Nobody really wins. And so it's just sad to see, and I hope these guys can figure it out on both sides of the aisle, man.
So for yourself living in America, where can you see something like this going? Like, I can picture a few things, but this isn't something like we've lived through it through Canada, but it's not on the scale and magnitude as it is in America. So what is this like for you living there? Like, I understand you're in Hawaii and not in the heart of America, but I know you feel it as well out there.
Well, you know what? Some of the most military people, right? We have some of the biggest bases here, in the Pacific that really kind of guard America's interest out here. So, you see regular people. I live in a building. There's a lot of military people that live in my building, and I feel for those people because those men and women, they go to work every day and they protect and they serve and they do everything that they can to make America better. And when you take a look at it, I mean, those are the people that end up getting hurt, right? Because they have kids, they have families, they have a livelihood, they have car payments, we have rent and mortgages, right? And what happens when it comes the 1st and the 15th and they can't get paid? Those bills don't stop, right? And so some of those people live paycheck to paycheck. A lot of those people live paycheck to paycheck, and those are the people that are going to get hurt the most out of this as both sides bicker and fight between each other. Do you guys have any type of like shutdowns like this in Canada? Does this ever happen, or is this kind of just an American stupid thing that we have to deal with on a quarterly basis, I guess now?
We experience it too, but not to the extent that you do. I want to say it happened, was it last year or the year before, during or just after COVID? And me living where I live out in northern Ontario, I didn't feel the effects, and I didn't feel any ramification in terms of after effects from it being this far. But I'm sure others living closer, like in Toronto or Vancouver. Vancouver's on the other end of Canada, but I mean, in the city centers itself, I'm sure they felt whatever was going on there. But in terms of where these shutdowns are leading and not having the government being or doing their job, what they're paid to do, when they're not corruptly stealing money, and they're trying or supposed to be doing something and not bickering and complaining between each other, I want to say that it's going to lead to nothing good, man. Like, it's not going to lead to anything good at all. Like as we were talking about off camera, there was a Senator Menendez, him and his wife. Was he indicted for that, or was he just taken in?
I think he indicted. Yeah, I think process of him being indicted, and I mean, I haven't really kind of followed that story too well, but I mean, when he's got gold bars like you were saying, in his closet and piles of money. Usually you keep that stuff in safety deposit boxes when it's official, and other gold. But hey, the reason you keep money in the closet like that is if you need to run, right? And so I don't know, man. It just I guess more facts will come out and different things. But if you look at both sides of the aisle, man, there's just so much corruption. It's kind of sickening to kind of keep up with it all. And nobody wins here, right? You have regular, just ordinary people that go to the polls and they vote for who they think is going to lead them into a better future. And at the end of the day, these people take the power of the people and they abuse it. And those types of people need to be held accountable. And when we can start officially holding those people accountable, maybe then we can get some change. But it just feels like we are stuck in this constant cycle of vicious cycle of just bullshit after bullshit after bullshit, and nobody wins at the end of the day, man. And especially us crypto people, we're waiting for America to kind of come around, right? You have Canada, who's made some smart legislation. You have the UK, who's been making good legislation. You have all of these other countries that are moving forward, that can see the future of digital assets. And it really is painful to watch America slip further and further down this hole of just not understanding how important that crypto will be for this new financial system. I mean, it is the new financial system, and I think it's a lack of education. It's an age thing too, right? If you look at Congress, you see a lot more people that are 60, 70, even 80 years old. And I think we do need a younger generation and a younger crowd. And I hope that when people go to the polls in 2024 and 2026, that we can find some younger people that are going to lead us down to a brighter future. What's going on in Canada as far as elections and that type of stuff? Do you guys feel like you guys have solid people running for office that will lead Canada to a brighter future?
That's an interesting question, because the two parties that seem to be barking the loudest, how's the saying go? The squeaky wheel gets the oil, or gets the lube, or gets whatever it is. Anyways, the two loudest political parties right now, just like you guys, the blue and the red. We have the Conservatives and we have the Liberals. And In the house, it's just the two of them going back and forth. That's all it is, just going back and forth. And Justin Trudeau, I mean, we all seen the video of Uncle Klaus Schwab talking. This is one of our young global leaders, and we've managed to penetrate the Canadian cabinet. And then you have Pierre Poilievre. He's on the blue conservative side there. From my recollection, he used to be on the roster in the web, on the WEF as well. And then his name got scrubbed, and even in the Wayback Machine, we were unable to bring that up. And he goes on and won't denounce the WEF, but he says if anybody's name is found at the WEF, they will be fired. But he doesn't own up to what the accusations are against him.
We never did.
Ultimately, when it comes down to it, though, like I see, we've come too far liberal in terms of accountability with who and how we represent ourselves as a country in Canada, globally speaking, not even just Canada. And it's come too far now where I feel like the pendulum's gonna swing really hard and really fast with a lot of force behind it into the next side. And I don't think it's going to take too long before it gets to the other side there and we reach a tipping point, whatever that looks like, too good, bad, or indifferent. But I definitely see something happening very, very soon, especially with this shutdown that you're talking about there. Because ultimately, when it's said and done, like America leads the world.
Yeah.
You know, America leads, hands down. There's no questioning that one.
Where do you see, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, this whole idea of the Great Reset, because that's who's pushing this idea, right? And so, do you see that actually happening down the line here? Do you see the entire system has to kind of shut down, people kind of lose because that's really the design of the Great Reset, right? And a lot of people and a lot of value goes really to nothing, and then this all comes onto this new whatever digital age or as this value gets moved. What do you think is going to happen with that?
Oh man, I've wrestled with that one for quite some time. Like I've heard of, I'm going to talk about a few things that some people may or may not know here now. So I've heard of Nasara Jasara. I've wrestled with that in the early stages. I'm like, maybe. It's like, I don't know, maybe. With that one, I sit on the fence and just keep my ears open. I don't close myself off to it. If it's true, fantastic. If it's not true, fantastic. I've heard things go to zero too, and I'm like, maybe, but then I couldn't just see things going to, like, everything going to zero, then there's no economy, and then it's being built up from nothing. So what I do see is, it's the coexistence. They talk about this in Canada and U.S. and in the ECB out in Europe there. They talk about coexistence where we're on the SWIFT system, because Canada uses SWIFT system too to get our funds over across the sea there. So we have the SWIFT system, which is the global messaging system, and over here we have the new ISO messaging system with the rich data here, and they're both holding each other up right now. So for myself in aviation, when we have a new system coming in, and we're going through huge changes right now because of the changes taking place in the world, aviation's a heavily regulated industry. So what's going on in the crypto industry, I feel that in my day-to-day work. So with our old system being held right now, and we're trying to transfer data and information over to this system here, there's no way anybody would ever allow me or anybody else to let this thing go until we are sure that we are confident in this system here, and everything that's over here is over here. And this thing never goes away. It might become old and archaic and fraying and falling apart, but it never goes away, because if you ever need data that never made it onto this one here, this one's right there.
Yeah.
And then eventually it'll get to a point where they stop supporting it, but it's still working even though it's unsupported. I see something along those lines. I can't see an economy going to zero, just going to zero. It might go damn near close to it, but it's not going to zero.
You know what's really interesting about all this, though, is because how long can you kick the can down the road, right? America right now is paying $3 to $5 billion a day just in interest on the national debt, right? And when you look at the number of 33 trillion, and you're entering in to 2024, where you're going to have another election year. Basically, you're going to have a rematch of Biden versus Trump, right? Nobody really wins that, but the economy, the yield curve has been inverted now. If you kind of look back in history, history, anytime the yield curve is inverted, where you have short-term rates are lower than long-term rates. Wait, did I get that right? Or short-term rates are usually when you're financing something longer term, you have higher rates. Sometimes lower, you have lower rates. But when the yield curve is inverted, 15 months after is the average that usually the U.S. or the economy enters into a recession, and that is October. The yield curve inverted in July of 2022. So it's just interesting to see, if you look back in history, where we're actually heading right now. And I think it feels like a recession.
It's interesting you say recession, because I'm at the firm belief that we've been in a recession from last year.
Yeah.
Truthfully speaking, the term or definition of a recession has never changed in my vocabulary since going through economics in school. 2 negative quarters back to back, and we hit that back in early or late 2021, early 2022, something along those lines. Then Biden came out eating his ice cream, enjoying his hot, nice summer, and saying, "No, we're not in a recession. I don't see one there." But what do you see, though?
Well,
What do you see?
you have manufacturing slowing down, not just in the U.S. but also abroad, right? In China and other places. You really do have all of these auto workers now, these unions asking for more money, and I think that the people deserve more money, right? There, I think these auto working unions, right? GM, Ford, and there's one other company, I think I can't remember the third company, but they're asking for 40% pay bump, right? You have all of these CEOs making millions and millions and millions of dollars in bonuses. They got all of that COVID money where they went and they just bought stock buybacks, so they have even more money and more power. And I think regular people that work in those plants are getting kind of screwed over, right? And so when you look at that, right, and you have a slowdown in the manufacturing of automobiles, right, that kind of trickles down to other businesses that create the car parts, that create the engines and the transmissions and the computers and everything that goes into a car, right? And when you have a slowdown in that, factories and other people have to lay off trained, really, really solid people. And I do think you're going to have a steep rise in unemployment as we enter into the next 3 to 6 months. You had a lot of you still had a lot of factories pumping out stuff for the Christmas boom. You have student loan repayments in the U.S. There's 40 million people that are on student loans. 20 million people actually were on this kind of student loan pause, and so that continues now in October. So the average payment on student loans is $400. So you're going to have a lot more people that are not going to be able to spend money because now that they're having to pay all of these other things that are coming up. So everything is kind of screaming right now to me that we're going to get into an official recession. But then I wonder, is the Biden administration going to allow that? Are they going to say, hey, maybe we'll print more money and create more stimulus so we don't get into recession so I can get reelected, right? And that is kind of where I'm thinking this might be going, because even though inflation right now, core inflation is around 4%, they're talking about inflation getting down to 2%, which is where their target is going to take longer than what it took for inflation to get from 9% to 4% here in the U.S. So it's really like up for grabs what is going to happen. And I look at all of these different factors, and it's pointing to a worldwide kind of slowdown, and people are not able to borrow money right now because rates are so high. You have $1.5 trillion worth of these business loans where these companies have been financing these office buildings and this office space. They're not going to have money to redo all of this stuff, and so I don't know, man. It looks like it could be pretty bad for the U.S. and for all of us going forward.
I hear a crackling. I'm not sure if that's my mic or if it's yours, but I'm at the firm belief too, along with this.
One second, I did. Hold on.
Yeah, man.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on with this camera thing. Let me put another card here. Give me 1 second. It's always something with everything, bro. Hold on, let me just press play here. Yeah, cool. Well, you have a firm belief? Hit me with that again.
Yeah. I have a firm belief that there's going to be a lot's going to get a lot deeper than even what you explained, and those are valid points. But I mean, I'm a real estate investor and following real estate itself on a global and micro scale, global and micro, on a macro and micro scale. There, looking globally, like in the U.S., the CMBS, commercial mortgage-backed securities. Are you familiar with that term?
Hit me. There's a lot of people that be familiar.
So commercial mortgage-backed securities, what it is commercial mortgages. You have, say, a commercial mortgage of some sort. You're an entity with, say, one of those towers, those working towers downtown, those big towers. There is a mixed use commercial, um, residential places. That's commercial mortgage as well. There are home hardware. There's Walmart. All these different securities, if you will, rolled into one bond. So it's a commercial mortgage back, and that all those together are make up that security. So as a lot of people had locked into the low rates back in 2020, 2021, 2022, going up, they locked in there. And once that 5-year maturity hits, and we're sitting at, I want to say 7.19 here in Canada, you guys must be around 7-8% at about right now. Once that 5-year maturity hits and their mortgage is unlocked, and they're there for the reevaluation again for the maturity of that mortgage, I don't think people realize how quick they're going to foreclose on that property at that point.
Yep.
You know, and once the commercial real estate begins to fall, same thing for residential. That's going to bring the economy down a lot faster than everything else that was explained earlier. And so that being said, I think there's going to be another printing fit again. That's how Biden's going to prop the economy up with the printing. There's going to be so much money. I think at that point, that's what's going to break the back of America. And then come Q4, when the bank earning roll call comes out, oh man, it's just going to be dangerous when they didn't meet their targets.
Well, a lot of people don't understand that 70% of these loans are actually regional smaller banks, right? They're not the big HSBCs and their Citibank and their Chase. They're actually these smaller banks, right? These local banks. And so, as you said, over the next 12 to 24 months, or maybe 12 to 36 months, you have this $1.5 trillion coming up, and you have rates that used to be 0.5%, 1%, now they're 7 or 8%. How do you pay triple the mortgage, right? Or quadruple? And a lot of these loans, like you said, they're balloon loans, right? Where you're just interest, and they plan to refinance it and kick the can down the road, but they're not going to be able to do that. So what happens to those companies, right? You have companies that are going into bankruptcy at higher levels, right? And it's kind of getting to the point where we're looking back in 2007, 2008, and that is, like you said, it's going to hit not just the business side of the real estate, but also the residential side, and that's where a lot of people's money is, right? That's where they go and they take seconds out on their home, or they take loans out and things like that. That's where a lot of these people's real money is, and if that tanks and goes down, that puts everybody at risk. And I think you're right. I think the only way out of this is to print more money, but how far can you actually kick the can down the road, right? Because you're already at 30. Yeah. If you print more money, it's going to be another $5 to $6 trillion. Now you're going to be at 40 trillion, right, or higher. Yeah. So what is the interest looking like on that for the U.S. and what do you think about China's economy, right? Because you have Evergrande and then you have Country Garden, right? Country Garden, second biggest, and they're looking at probably bankruptcy too, and combined together $500 billion bankruptcy, right? And that is going to hit hard too, because what is it? You have 25 or 30% of the total people's wealth in China is actually in real estate. When you have in the U.S., I think it's about 16%, but in China it's like 25 or maybe 28%. And what does that look like for the Chinese economy? And because that's over 1 billion people. What are they going to do, right? And I think there's more pain to come as far as that goes as well.
Unfortunately, I see a similar outlook to you in regards to China and America. I think that the mic popping right now is on your end. I stopped recording on my side here, so we'll just have the one recording on yours. So whenever you're speaking, I hear like this crackling there. But in regards to China's economy, like they're going to feel it bad too. When I found out about the Evergrande and the Country Garden, it was I had a hard time swallowing that news. I was like, my God, like this is massive. And to think how it's going to end, it brings me back to like a few months ago. Yeah, a few months ago, I had rewatched The Big Short, and I was like, oh my God, and I even posted a snippet of this. I'm like, we are reliving this again. reliving it. And I wasn't able to see what was going on at that point in my life. I was more focused on going to school. So to be here now, to have the privilege and the honor to be chatting with you about this, living through this right now, and bringing this information to the people that can hear our voices, like, I feel honored to be able to see what's going on and to capitalize on it. At this point, all I pray is that my decisions to what I had invested in, based off of my research and what the knowledge I have gained from this, I pray that this does what I foresee it doing. Because and people and I've heard people say, and even I had ethical questions with this too. Like, you're investing in WEF products, you're investing in Bill Gates, the Gates Foundation, and other things like that. And do you agree with this? How can you live with this? I'm like, I don't agree with it at all. The way I've been able to be okay with it in my life, I had to take a step out of my frame of reference and then open my viewfinder at that point, and then say, you know what? These things in my life are out of my control. I can only control the things that within my control. And irregardless of my decisions, this is going to happen. So if it's going to happen and I'm aware of these things happening, why not just go along for the ride irregardless? Not to say that I condone this or I agree with it, just why not? If I can pull off a Robin Hood, steal from the rich and give back to the poor, then why the hell not? You know what I'm saying, man?
I love it, man. There's very few people that kind of understand this on a macro level, like you're talking about, and it's a lot of fun to talk with somebody that kind of can see what I see and understand kind of where we're heading. What are your thoughts? Let's talk a little bit more about crypto, and we'll jump off the economy for a bit. What are your thoughts about this ISO migration in November? Right, you have Citibank, you have Chase, you have Swift. They're all telling these banks, don't wait till 2025. Upgrade now, update now. Where does that leave crypto in November? Do you think we're going to have a good Christmas? Do you think these banks actually will start using crypto for settlement, or do you think we're still kind of a ways on that?
So, and that's a really good, interesting question, and I'm grateful you asked it. I'm excited here, grasping my hands because you asked that. But what I see by November, like in terms of switching over from MT to MX ISO messaging at this point, the banks have no option but to switch over to ISO. The FIs, the SMEs, they have no choice but to switch over. And in 2023 November, ironically, or should I say coincidentally enough, the IMF and the FSB are coming out with IOSCO, and who is it? IOSCO and CPMI. They're coming out with the global stablecoin standards at that point. Yep. And ironically enough, in 2025, that's when they're having their re-evaluation. So in regards to waiting till 2025, they don't have the option to wait till 2025. They must be on it by 2023. That way they can smooth things out leading until 2025, into November, when the global stablecoin re-evaluation at that point is in existence, and these entities must adhere to those regulations that exist. And no, I don't believe CFTC, and no, I don't believe the SEC are real regulators. Yeah. They are regulators for the you and me of the world. But you have entities such as the FSB was created as a regulator. The OECD was created as a regulator. These standard-setting bodies are the real regulators. The IAID, the IIAD, the BCBS, the BIS, those are the regulators. Though the CFTC, the SEC, they're there for us to hinder what we can and cannot do. What are your thoughts on it now?
Bro, it's music to my ears what you're saying here. The IOSCO, they represent 90% of the globe for securities market, right? For regulation, I think, right? And so it's just another standard set body, and the Financial Stability Board. It does feel like they are moving and making more progress in the crypto space, and they're kind of pushing the goalposts forward, and they're moving the ball forward. And without those standard bodies, without the globe kind of working together, I feel like crypto would be kind of at a total loss here. And so I do think November will be an interesting time, because you actually, you finally have them on the right messaging, right? The rich data messaging, where you can use a digital asset for settlement. And it's like, who's going to be the first, right? Is it the chicken and the egg scenario, right? What came first, the chicken and the egg? So it's like, what bank or banks are going to start using this? Because once you really have one or two, three, four, or five banks, right, you actually get a tidal wave of banks after that, because now you're kind of at a disadvantage, right? Because you're able to instant settlement. You're able to take all of that money you have locked up in these Nostro accounts, and you're actually able to use that money to not only fund banking operations, but new loans, new operations, better customer service, new services for customers, right? It's just a very interesting time, right? And I do think we're closer now than we ever have been. To all.
Yeah. I'm here laughing as you say that. Now we're eliminating no-shows, and the reason I'm laughing because I was reading about the RLN that City had put out, and they were talking about it, and they were like, yeah, we digitized this, and now we have digital no-shows, and it's like, what? Why would you do that? What was the point of it? Where's the innovation in this?
Yep.
You just took what was hindering banks before and financial institute and made it digital. you solved nothing.
It's still a digital silo, right? And that's the whole thing, right? You're just recreating the same problem that you already have. And Citibank. I was just watching. Last week I was playing some clips for my community. Tony McLaughlin from Citibank. He's a really interesting fellow, and he was doing this. It was May 10th and 11th. It was I can't remember the event that he was speaking at, but he was sitting next to a guy named Ben Hur or something like that, and he was talking about why banks can't use the public version of Ethereum because they don't know where the gas fees are going, and that puts banks at a huge third-party risk problem. And so that's why banks will never be able to use really the public version of Ethereum. That's why they created that new tokenized deposits on this private version of Ethereum. But I still think you still have the same problem, right? Ethereum's not a good settlement vehicle, right? At the end of the day, and when you have something like an XRP or an XLM, why on earth would you ever use Ethereum, right? And I just think that as we move closer to ISO and the mass adoption, I think that once you get a handful of banks really starting to use technology, it puts pressure on them all. And what's going to happen, right? You have $19 trillion in bank deposits in the United States alone. What happens when those bank deposits get tokenized, and where does that value live, right? That is really what I'm kind of trying to show people and tell people, because once all those that value gets tokenized, that's how you are able to move value instantly, have instant settlement. And once that happens, where does a lot of that value live? And a lot of these banks want to be on the same systems that central banks are on, right? Because a lot of these central banks do a lot of the clearing for a lot of these banks, cross border. And so when you see a company like Ripple working with 30 plus central banks, you kind of feel like other banks are going to be like, well, if it's good enough for Bank of England and Monetary Authority of Singapore and Hong Kong, it's good enough for the banks, right? And so I do think you're going to get more adoption as more CBDCs roll out, and I think 2024 is going to be an even more incredible year for crypto information at large, and I think we're going to be very, very busy.
Absolutely. Just earlier today, I put out. Have you heard of RTGS Global? That's Marcus Stretcher's little sweetheart he has going on there. But I figured I'd take a quick dive into that because I was watching the OMFIF, the DMI segment. It was OMFIF and Marcus Stretcher yesterday, I believe it was. And so when I heard about RTGS, I was like, okay, well, I know Stretcher has the connection with Ripple. He was with them through 2020, 2022, I believe, then not started then, but he had RTGS from back in 2018, I want to say, as well. So I had just recently found out that they're still connected to Ripple. The CTO has on his LinkedIn that they can use a token. He doesn't say we do use a token. We can use a token / coin like XRP. Flat out. It's like, okay, cool. I can't take that as gospel, but what can I take as gospel? So I found out that the platform that they're using for RTGS Global is Microsoft Azure. And right on the Microsoft Azure page, it says powered by Ripple. It's like, okay, that's loud enough for me. I don't need to continue digging at this point. And it's really neat because they are clearing 15 trillion. 15 trillion. It's like, And what, as you were saying, once the adoption and the uptick in adoption takes place, like it's just going to be exponential, and I can't even fathom it. When I picture it, it comes to me in an audible sound, like that. Like it's just like a cartoon almost.
You know what's crazy too, though, right? You have, FedWire is supposed to be moving over to ISO,
Yeah.
too, right? And a lot of people don't realize FedWire clears 4.2 trillion a day by itself, right?
Wow.
Then,
Yeah.
then you have Nacha. Nacha clears 72 million a year, 72 trillion a year, and you have Ripple on the Nacha Alliance. You have Ripple working. People don't realize that Ripple's been working with the federal government for like what 8 years now, right? They've been working on this task force, and also too, you have the European Central Bank. They're going to be kind of maybe deciding on what they're going to do with their CBDC next month, right? Because they had a 2-year timeline, and that's up in October, and it's going to be interesting to see what Christine Lagarde does, because we know, I've had multiple clips. I played multiple clips on my channel of Christine Lagarde mentioning Ripple and Circle as disruptors in the space, and we know from that meeting where you had Brad Garlinghouse with, you had the guy from the IMF, you had Ross Leckow, you had Christine Lagarde, and you had all those like bank and board of governors in that same room, right? Where it's like that famous picture where you have like Jess Chang and you had Christine Lagarde and Ross Leckow. You have all those people in that photo, right? And so you wonder, right? They're working off a roadmap and a game plan from 2020, right? And so the winners in my viewpoint have already been chosen, right? A lot of people say, oh, this new technology is going to come along and be adopted. And it's like, guys, you don't understand that banks will never adopt something instantly. It needs to go through like years of sandbox testing, right? They need to really make sure that this is like a legitimate technology. And then you have, Ripple, who's got, they have AML, anti-money laundering, you have the counterterrorism checks, you have sanctions checks, you have all of these things that actually go into a payment that people don't realize that has to happen to really kind of send that payment. Because if you send a payment to a bank that's under sanctions, you could be looking at jail time or millions of dollars in fines, right? And so it just kind of makes me more bullish that the last 4 years of my life that I put into researching these digital assets, that we're getting to a point where we're almost going to be proven right about all the stuff that we've thought and that we've been working towards these last couple of years.
Yeah, after you use a good word there, a good words, good phrase, proven right. And I want to say, I feel that we're there already, and not seeming cocky at all. But when you hear them say, digital assets or crypto specifically is the core of the banks. Crypto is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. The train has left the building, and that's not even just a Rosie Rios phrase. Like that's said amongst them.
Yeah.
Whoever them are, it's said amongst them. And to hear those things is like, okay, at least I know I'm in the right place. Who's schmoozing with who? And people like to talk about the war going on in Ukraine right now, and that's a real war that's taking place right now. But at the same time, a lot of people have a hard time pulling their self out of their human vision from what they see and just stepping back and using the mind itself to like coming out of your human self, block off the lies, and just think and stop and say, okay, well, what's really going on? And to know that all these bankers are behind the scenes shaking hands. Hey, man, you want to come to the barbecue I'm having on Saturday? Yeah, of course you can bring little Sarah. Bring them all over, man. We're good. I'll see you. Bring your rubber ducky. I got my pool open. We're, behind the scenes, these bankers are funding this war going on from every single angle. Whether they're working together solely just to get this done and because they have to meet their mandate, or there's something else that I'm missing in regards to why they have to work together right now, or something negative or adverse can happen. I don't know. All I can do is speculate, but to know that they're all like that picture you were talking about with Christine Lagarde, it was Tobias Adrian from the IMF, Brad Garlinghouse, and a few other people that were there. Like these are these are the people. You know what I'm saying? Like they know each other. They hang out with each other. They walk with each other. They lockstep with each other. They parlay with each other. They hang out. Like they do what you and I are doing, but without the camera.
Yeah, man.
Like I'll call a spade a spade. Like I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here. I think conspiracy theories are great, but I mean ultimately conspiracy reality. I'm just trying to put the puzzle pieces together here and state what I see. I'm trying to put the facts together. That's it. I'm just creating a theory based off of the puzzle pieces in front of me.
Well, you know who loses in a war with Ukraine and Russia? It's really both sides. It's the people.
Yeah.
It's the people on both sides, right? Because it's really the whole war is fueled by this one man, is right. It's Putin, right? And he's really he's sending like medics and he's sending logistics people. He's sending all of these people to the front lines with no training, and they're just getting murked, man. And you're just and you have drones coming from above. Like people just you enter into this war and you really have no idea what's going on, and like I can't even say like how much money has Russia lost as far as military equipment that's been blown up, right? Like you have like 5,000 tanks, 9,000 armored vehicles, you have like hundreds of missile defense systems, right? Like people just are constantly losing, and what people don't realize at the end of the day, if Russia takes Ukraine, they're going to mobilize the people of Ukraine and then they're going to point them at Poland, right? And then NATO gets involved, and then you actually have a war where you actually have a World War III, right? And then you have boots on the ground, and no matter what people do, right, they're not happy with sending support to Ukraine. But then if this all takes place and Russia takes Ukraine and then invades Poland, now you actually have American boots on the ground, you have Canadian boots on the ground, you have our friends and family members who are going to be on the front lines, and then that's going to be a whole nother situation, right? And so it just feels like nobody's really winning at the end of the day here. It's the people on both sides that are really kind of suffering, and this whole thing, Ukraine's going to be messed up for years and years and years to come. And you have companies like BlackRock and Vanguard, right? They're sitting there just itching and waiting for the time to rebuild Ukraine because they know they're going to get all of this government funding from all of the European Union and all these different places, and they want that money, right? They're going to go in there and they're going to get they're going to hire construction companies and all this, and then they're going to help build Ukraine, and they're going to own a bunch of all this stuff. And it's all about greed, money, and power at the end of the day, right? A select few, and that's who's pushing all of this whole agenda, in my opinion.
Also, you could be right, you could be wrong. I honestly, I try my best not to follow the war in terms of who's winning or what side's doing what, because like I find it disheartening. At the end of the day, like I consider myself an empath, and just feeling all of that is just it's way too much. I know I only have I have a cap on my emotion that I can give out. And then once I reach that, I go in and I want nothing around me at all. So I'm like, this is too much, too much. Yeah, but this could, yeah, no, just no, not right now. I've reached all I can reach, all I can feel for today. It's just like you're saying, nobody wins in the end. Like it's a meaningless war that doesn't need to exist, and the digitization can happen without this war happening in our real world instead. But they preferred not to be transparent with what's actually going on. So we hurt. We hurt in the end. And not a single one of their kids is in the front line trying to defend their country.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be about a country, because ultimately, when it comes down to it, we are the human race.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting choked up here right now. Like we're the human race,
Yeah.
and we're made to be put one against the other, man against woman, woman against man, child against their mother, religion against religion, culture against just at every angle.
Yeah.
And it saddens me that people have a hard time seeing and recognize this for what is actually taking place. They're too busy caught up in there. They don't know it's this. This is what's right. And the hubris of them that they have no way of stopping to even have and hold a conversation to allow another point of view in. Not to have to say that I'm wrong, but just you can say that, you know what, I see what you're saying and it makes sense. I may not agree with it, and we can agree to disagree. It's just the conversation's locked off immediately, and they're right. And the minute you can't have a conversation to not alter someone's mind, but just to allow and interject something else into their frame of reference, when they have a difficult time allowing these things, there's a lie in this conversation already, automatically.
Yeah, I think the polarization is gotten to be, and they just they believe in something, and then it's like that for the rest of their lives. They cannot change their opinion, they cannot change their view, and they won't listen to the opposite side. And it turns into a battle, and it turns into a fight. And I have strong opinions, and sometimes my emotions get the best of me. But I'm always open to listening to the other side and trying to change my opinion. Right? I don't want to ever stay locked into something. I want to be able to be flexible and understand what the other side is coming from. But I think we've all kind of entered into this phase where I'm not wrong. I'll never be wrong. It doesn't matter what anyone says to me or whatever the facts are. This is my opinion, and that's law, right? And it's just I think social media and kind of the internet has sped up people being kind of just on different planets, right? And it's sad that we can't come together as a race. And I think you're going to see, like, over the next maybe 5, 10, 20 years, you're going to see more information coming out about aliens and space and this and that. And it feels like that's the only way we're ever all going to come together, unless we're actually fighting or dealing with an existential threat to the entire planet. That's really the only thing that's going to be able to bring us together as a race of human beings, I think.
I agree 100%. And just to segue into, I guess, something else here right now.
Let's do it.
How about that new stablecoin, the Euroc by Circle with Stellar? That one. That is sweet. That is so sweet. I've been following it when Stellar first came out with not Stellar came out with it, but they had that CBDC out in Ukraine.
Yep.
And that was the trial, if you will. And out of nowhere now comes the Euroc, and I'm like, oh, this is sweet. It worked out. Everything was great. Here we go. Let's do this.
What are your so you like Stellar, you like XRP, you like Ripple, obviously. What other projects are you passionate about at this time? Like, what is really kind of driving you? What are you looking at?
So I like XRP. I like XLM. I'm lying. I love them. XDC. Oh, I love me some XDC. Like, I follow what's going on in Europe hard. I've learned so much about English law and the different bills becoming acts out there and how they operate and work, and the House of Lords is just uncanny. And XDC is like all over that through the ICC, WTO, GSBN, the IFA. Like, it's just massive out there. So XDC is like one of my tops as well. I love me some Algo, QNT, Qantas, and Gilbert.
Yeah. Network.
I've got to give it up to them. I don't talk about these other guys enough, but Ripple to me is like
king.
It's Ripple.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what adjective to put after that. It's Ripple,
Ripple's definitely top of the mountain, man. Like, I don't think there's a bigger company. Like, you know what? I even think, and this is not probably, I don't see a lot of people talking about this, but personally, I think if Ripple were to ICO whenever that happens, we can talk about the 29th and what you think is going to happen too, but when Ripple ICOs and their valuation of the company goes through the roof, I think Ripple makes a play for R3 eventually here. I was doing some numbers on how much it would cost to buy out R3. You're looking anywhere from like $1.5 to $2.5 billion at this time. R3 just did a 50 million, I think, is it euros, or I think 50 million euro raise. The two companies that actually gave them money, one of the companies actually using ODL, which is kind of funny, Ripple's ODL. So my body and my soul kind of feels like they're going to make a play for R3 eventually here. And if they do, I think that would really just, I think the game would be over at that point, right? I think people could not, because you still have the haters and you still have people that don't believe, and you still have people that maybe aren't as educated as me and you are about all the stuff that's happening. And I think that would kind of put that final nail in the coffin for just Ripple's global just supremacy in the crypto space.
Mm-hmm. It's a very neat concept there. Go after R3. I hadn't put that in my head before.
I think because Ripple's evaluation right now is like, they're selling stock, it's about $9 billion. And I was doing the numbers on R3, is about anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 billion. And I know that's a big kind of whatever, but you have to kind of look at what is R3 destined to make here in the long run, right? And I think they make a play for it, man, because they're putting the pieces on the board together, right? They bought Medico, or they partnered and they Forge, and I think Ripple is really kind of lining up, and I think that would be the last piece that they would need to kind of just global dominance, man. I really do. I just had to hit record again. Anytime.
No worries.
But yeah, man. Anyways, what do you think is going to happen on the 29th? You think it's just a party, or you think it's something more than just a party for Ripple?
So I would like to think that Ripple would IPO, but I don't see it happening, not yet. Like, I don't see a reason to celebrate yet. Some people might say XRP has, clarity right now. I don't consider that clarity. I consider that knowing one side of the spectrum when it's a multi-angle thing. If it's not a security, then what is it? That's the thing. And then when you have what it is it defined as to have an understanding of what it is? So did anybody say that there's going to be an announcement there at all, or is it just a party? Because
well, you have all of these. I hate these quote unquote new crypto basics and these new kind of they take a tweet and they turn it into a news article and people take the law, right, and facts and like you have to sift through like what is actually real and what is not. And so you see a lot of these articles where David Schwartz is saying that or these things are quoting that David Schwartz is saying that they're going to IPO, but I don't know if those are legitimate sources and like I don't know, man. Like, what is there's Chris and Brad are still in the lawsuit, right? And like you do have the SEC meeting the day before to talk about the Sunshine Act and some other things that go along with that. But I don't know, man. Like it would be really incredible to see something like that happen. But I just don't know if we're there yet. Technically, I would love to be wrong about that, but.
That's interesting. The Sunshine meeting is the day before, because today and yesterday, September 26th and 27th, Ripple was out in Tennessee, I want to say, for the FPC meeting, which is the Faster Payments Council meeting. Just for the people who aren't aware of the acronyms, I like to put the whole word in there, that way people have an understanding when we do use them. But yeah, they had a meeting out there, and I wanted give a description of what it was, but I have so much in my head that I don't remember what it actually was about. As soon as we hang up, it'd be like, oh yeah, that's what it was. That's what they were going there for. But did you happen to hear about that at all?
I didn't, man. And now that you said it, I'm gonna have to go ahead and research it as soon as we get off the phone and see what's man. So we'll have to break that down. I wonder if it's on what's it called, Ripple. Or is it Brad going to Tennessee?
No, it's not Brad. It's I can see the name. It's a Thelen, Thelen, I think. I don't know this person, so his name escapes me. But yeah, they're definitely going to the Faster Payments.
Here you go. Hold on. So Faster Payments 2023 Fall Member Meeting, September 26, 27, 12:30 to 3:30. You have BNY Mellon, you have Currency, you have ECS Finsley, you have MasterCard, Wells Fargo, Trustly, the Clearinghouse. I don't see Ripples anywhere here though. But yeah, I'll have to dig into this as soon as we get done here. That's interesting. What do you think is going to happen as far as Basel framework, right? We know banks are these Basel framework reforms are coming, right? And a lot of people don't understand we're still in a speculation market. We're not in a utility bull market yet. We still are waiting for global regulation, right, from the G20, and we're still waiting for Basel framework to be updated so banks can actually custody crypto assets, right? Right now, banks have to, if they're going to buy crypto, they have to go through like, a partner where the partner actually custodies their assets, right? But sooner or later, you're going to get, group one assets, group two assets, and banks are going to be able to hold, obviously backed up by, dollars or euros or pounds or whatever. But do you think Basel framework and reforms will be pushed forward for adoption sooner than later, or do you think we're still on this like timeline where kind of it feels like different countries are updating at different times and different things are happening? But what are your thoughts on Basel? Because I know you do a lot of research on Basel.
So before I give my thoughts on that, do you mind? Like, you and I are aware of what it is, but can you give a brief explanation of what the Group One and the Group Two assets are under the BIS Basel framework? There.
I'd have to pull up, exactly what it is, as far as, what Group One and Group Two is, because I mean, I read it all the time and different things, but like it doesn't specifically say, stable coins and this and that fall under, Group One. I think I would.
Can I?
I wish I had it, man. Do you have it? Do you know?
Yeah, do you mind if I? So a Group 1 asset would be something that a tokenized asset essentially. That's a Group 1A asset. A Group 1B asset is an asset with a stabilization mechanism. They call it a reference asset or a pegging mechanism. And then you have the Group 2 assets, which are those that don't fall like algorithmic stable coins, or those that don't have a stabilization mechanism behind them. So, which is what caused the collapse of Luna 2 years ago now?
Yeah.
I want to say. Yeah. So, in regards to the Basel framework, it's going to be interesting when it comes because we have the U.S.'s that needs to reach their implementation, which is in 2025, I believe it is, and theirs is known as the end game. The Basel III end game is what it's called, and I believe theirs is coming for 2025. They've already started the implementation, and they have to hold, I want to say 75% RWA risk-weighted assets, whether that's gold, silver, bonds, whatever it is, backing up their deposits at that point.
Yep.
It's not 0% anymore, so they have to immediately somehow get to that 75% for that single entity. And then when they finally reach Basel IV framework, this is where it gets interesting because now it's not just this is the framework across the playing field anymore. It's I'm a bank of Mr. Man now. I have to reach my own 75% of my own deposits, and I have to operate within this framework to the best of my ability, adhering to what is put in front of me. And they look at me as an individual now, and same for you as an individual bank, as opposed to we look at all banks the same, and you have to meet this regulation. And then in Europe, it's the same thing. They call theirs the Basel 3.1 something or other. And
So
it's going to be interesting to watch all of this unravel, for the U.S. and Europe, because well, Europe has bars of gold. Europe is U.S. I haven't seen them flexing with it. Look at my baby bars. You have like Russia being like, yeah, we have gold. And China's like, nah, we got nothing. We're not telling you anything. Not telling you shit. You got like Africa. Oh yeah, you better let go of U.S. dollar because it's gonna get real bad. By the way, we got gold bars. It's like it's a rap album or something.
you know what's funny though, and I'm so glad because I mean you laid that out beautifully, man. Like there's just so much information like going through your head. You just sometimes slip on stuff. But speaking about gold, I mean you have banks buying gold at what 50-year highs. It does feel like central banks, China and some of the other ones feel like gold's going to be reevaluated here sometime down the line. What are your thoughts on gold being reevaluated? I think the U.S. has like 600 billion in gold reserves or something like that. It's not trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. So, but what are your thoughts on gold being revalued? And do you think that's going to happen?
I honestly think it's like the coolest thing, and it's about time this is happening now. Because we've been pegged to this fiat dollar for I don't know how long. I don't know where these banknote idea came from with the Treasury having gold, and we'll have this dollar value, this this cloth, this paper thing pegged to that, and you're technically holding a derivative. And when you release the actual reference asset from this derivative is just on an automatic inflation run, and that's where we've been since. So to have something to bring it back down to earth is going to be fantastic, and that's where the level playing field begins, because now you won't have $1 US to 0.00005 Mexican peso or something like that. So an individual from Mexico could never make it here legally and buy something. That's why you see them all running across the border as fast as they can, because they're like, yeah, man, we can finally get over there. And same with all the where they're from, like
Venezuela. I mean, you have a lot of coming up from like El Salvador and in different places, right? Because you have like all these gangs, and you have it's rough, right? Everywhere else, and it's a real problem, right? You have cities in the U.S. that are just overloaded with migrants that are trying to flee to a better life, and the U.S. really doesn't have an answer right now for the immigration problem, and it's a big problem, right? You have millions of people pouring over the border this year, and there's not a lot of places to put these people and to house these people. So it is kind of sad, man, because you see a lot of these children and these families are just have nowhere to go, and they don't have much, and you feel for people, right? You see these people all the time, and I hope they figure out a solution here soon. It just kind of feels like Mexico is just a place where anything goes, right? And you have fentanyl coming in from China, and you have it's a mess right now, man. But let's not go down that road, because that'll be a terrible road. What do you think about CBDC adoption globally? Like, do you think that's a 2025 thing? Do you think I mean, personally, I think that you're going to see more and more CBDCs roll out in 2024, 2025. But where do you see these 95% of these countries working on some type of CBDC right now? Where do you see the inflection point? Like, what year do you have all of these countries actually launching the CBDCs and going forward with it?
So I want to answer that, but I'd like to preface it first with a question to you that I hope you can answer afterwards, because I've been trying to rack my brain around this and just trying to figure out the concept of what they're putting together. And that question is, what is a CBDC? Like, we talk about these CBDC, central bank digital currencies, how they're going to interact with our lives and what they can and can't do. But I've been racking my head on the structure of the CBDC itself, because the CBDC is central bank money. It's fiat money.
Digital.
Right? It's not the actual value that's pegged to the reference asset at that point. So what is a CBDC? So to go back to your question now, I think that 2023 will be an interesting year for CBDC, because that's when we have global stablecoins and global stablecoin, not necessarily implementation, but the standards for them. So there's going to be at least a model to adhere to, that if you don't meet this, you cannot exist. So to me, I feel that we're going to have coins like BUSD, the Tron USD, the Tethers. They might scave through it for now somehow by printing their way, but I think they're going to be the ultimate blow up.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be good. And I think that's what's going to be one of the reasons, if not the reason, if you can reflect on FTX here, and then we had exchange regulations like immediately. Well, we somehow magically have it now. So picture USDT now, same thing. Either the global stablecoin standards come out and USDT blows up, or USDT blows up and then we have standards. But I see that happening in 2025 though, because that's the re-evaluation. So they have to have a reason to say, yes, you adhere, no, you don't adhere, or if you can mold your and shape your business in a particular way to adhere to framework, then you adhere. So they have to have that re-evaluation, or the audit, if you will, of the company, or a reason to audit, to say a company passes or doesn't pass, or meets regulation and doesn't meet regulation. So there's going to be a reason for USDT to implode on itself and bring the Evergrandes and the Country Gardens and the China economy down, which will then ripple through Europe, hop over the sea to US, and bring down the US as well. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the CBDC and what the CBDC is?
Well, a CBDC is just a digital representation of sovereign currency, right? I mean, that's basically the definition of a central bank digital currency, right? It's just a digital form of sovereign debt, right? Sovereign currency. And so, I think that countries are moving towards CBDCs because not only they can have a better understanding, they can print money, they can burn money a lot easier. I think a lot of people get swept up in, government's going to control what I can buy and what I can sell. I think, with anything, when you live in a country and you are on some type of government assistance, right? Whatever money that government gives you, you're not going to be allowed to spend that money in certain places, right? You can't take your ECB, or no, not ECB, EBT, right? EBT is, kind of like food stamps, right? You get a card and you can go to the grocery store and buy food for your family. You can't take that card to a gun store and buy a gun, right? You can't take it to a weed shop and buy weed. So you're going to have some type of programmability in any type of CBDC, but a lot of people don't realize that you're never going to have your bank account hooked up directly to the Federal Reserve. It's going to be through your bank, and your bank has an account at the Federal Reserve, right? That's what the entire FedNow system is. And so you are going to have digital forms of money, right? You're going to have a digital euro, you're going to digital pound, you're going to have all of these, CBDCs, and I do think you're going to have digital SDRs, right? Because sooner or later, fiat money is not going to be an actual thing, right? You're going to have fiat money that's going to be in museums instead of kind of you using $20 to buy something. It's all going to be digital one day soon, right? It'll probably take 10, 20 years to actually get rid of fiat money because people are going to go crazy. But, you have checks that are going to be disappearing, right? You have the messaging standard for checks that are going to be kind of, zeroed out here too. But I do think you're going to see a lot more CBDCs launch. I do think 2025, 2026 is kind of the year of when all that kind of pushes forward. I just think a lot of people hear a CBDC and they get wrong impressions or wrong ideas, but you're always going to have some type of programmability when it comes to a central bank digital currency that is issued or sent to a person that is on some type of government assistance. Like if you're just a regular person that goes to work, pays their taxes, and you make enough income where you don't need government assistance, I don't think they're going to have a limit on what you can buy and what you can't buy. But you never know. They could go down that route, but I just think there's going to, I don't know, man. It's hard to say what's going to happen, but I think people just misunderstand programmability and what a CBDC is going to look like in the future. Perfect.
So I do recall reading that the ECB is going to have a limit to start off of 5,000 euros, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Because they want to create price stability at that point, and they can't just have people dump the fiat paper money to go right into digital, because this will just, at that point, it will collapse to zero immediately. So they have to do it where you have to hold this still, but you can only hold so much here. That way you have to learn to operate in both places. Like I was saying earlier, holding both of the worlds still until you can finally let go of one. CBDCs, I don't see Canada having a CBDC, and I don't see US having a CBDC, mainly because they're the fiat sovereign dollar, fiat digital dollar, if you will. But then you have entities like XLM with Algorand, and they create, and an Ethereum one, and they create the QCAD, the Canadian dollar, and they have backing of sorts, and that's essentially not a stable coin, but it could be a CBDC, but not necessarily a CBDC, because it's it could be a CBDC, but it could also be a stable coin, because the company that created it is Stable Corp, and they make stable coins. And then you have USDC, which is a stable coin as well. And of course, the stable coins are the item or the mechanism that has the backing or the stabilization mechanism behind it. So the CBDC is actually wrapped onto that, because the CBDC on a standalone has no value. I don't see, Canada had sold their gold under the Trudeau regime. They had sold all their gold back in 2016. So our dollar has been in government we trust for legitimately good in government we trust. Yeah. So with what happens to Canada during this, I've had a hard time trying to wrap my head around it and try to conceptualize how hard it's going to be for us, because we've been on we've been on 100% fiat for so long now.
Yeah.
So I can't even fathom what that transition is going to be like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And you know what, I when you were talking, I forgot to, when you were talking about USDT, I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. I think that just to kind of go back there, I forgot to tell you that I agree with you. I think that's, an $80 billion explosion bomb waiting to happen, right? In 2018, 4 people controlled the majority of USDT, and they just print, and I think there's some really shady business going on. They've never had an audit, right? And I think that's really I think if that blew up now, it would totally collapse the entire crypto market. But I think as we move forward and as other people and other stable coins get created and more stability comes into the market, I do think USDT is going to implode sooner or later. Like you said, I just don't think it really has a future, because if they really had reserves 1-to-1, why is it so hard to get an audit? And why did the last company that went in there to audit, why did they have to delete all of the things that they did? Just run away, right? Like, you really start to think about it, right? And all these people have all this money sitting on the sidelines in USDT, and it's the most scariest thing in the world, right? And I really think that is like a ticking time bomb in the crypto space, and a lot of people just ignore it, or they just don't realize it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Do you happen to watch what takes place in the House in the U.S.?
Oh,
Like, did you happen to see Gare Bear today getting roasted?
dude,
what are your thoughts on that?
I made a video about this before we actually got into this. I think Congress is sick and tired of getting the runaround. I mean, Gary Gensler walks in there with ice skates on, man, and all he does is just skate around, and he just avoids questions. He doesn't answer them directly. He's put there by the incumbents, right, by the big banks, to just completely screw up any real legitimacy for cryptocurrency in the United States. They're, big banks aren't ready yet, right, to custody crypto assets or to offer you crypto assets, and that's where banks are going. And a lot of people don't realize that. And Gary's just there to just screw up everything that he can in the meantime. And I think Congress is getting sick and tired of him. I think they want him gone. I think they want him fired. And I agree, man. I think the upper echelons of the SEC really needs to get just blown out. And I think you need to bring in real honest and not some just bureaucrat that's just put in there by the administration, right? I mean, you look back to back SEC chairmen, right? You had Jay Clayton, who was under had the whole Bill Hinman ETHgate, bribery and that stuff, and then now you have Gary Gensler, right? And so back to back, you've had just two people that have done everything they can to just implode the cryptocurrency market and just not provide clear rules and clear guidance. And I just think it's sad for American businesses that are trying to build in the crypto space. And think about the trillions. I mean, we're talking trillions of dollars of future tax money that is going overseas right now because they can't build in America and feel safe enough to do that. And it makes me sick to my stomach to watch this guy on TV, on these things, right? And just totally not answer questions, right? They were talking, Patrick McHenry was talking about actually subpoenaing Gary Gensler, so he actually has to answer some of these questions, right? And that would be the first time, I think, in history that the SEC chairman would be subpoenaed. And so I think Gary Gensler's time is limited. I think the Biden administration is going to have to roll some heads before this is all said and done. You have look at like Jerome Powell. He doesn't really seem to kind of get and understand what's going on with the economy. He's just kind of, they're right now they've been, just what is it called when they're kind of in between? They're not raising, they're not lowering. It's there's a term for it. I just can't think of it right now. But they don't know really what to do with the economy, right? They don't know whether to raise rates another 0.25% or leave in the same. But you look at the stock market right now, and the stock market is only up about a couple percent because of these AI projects, right? Without the AI projects, we would already be in a massive recession because the AI boom really kind of helped kind of keep us out of that. And then you have millennials who are spending a lot too. Those two things, and then the war in Ukraine, obviously, and all the military spending that we're doing, that itself is keeping us, or kind of on just the look of it, keeping us out of recession. But without some of those things, like once the AI kind of craze kind of settles down, which it has been, the stock market is just going to. I think the machines are getting ready to offload, and they have been offloading. And I think it's going to be pain ahead over the next 6 months. And I just think a lot of people just are maybe ignoring it, and they don't really see it. But I think when the stock market it kind of goes down, you have the real estate market going down, you have the business side of the real estate, the mortgage-backed securities, like we were talking about earlier. I think it's all kind of primed for. A really rough 2024 unless they start printing money again. And if they start printing money again, who knows what inflation will look like in the United States.
So it's interesting as you say this about Gary Gensler, because he's totally destroying things on the U.S. side of things, and it affects the world. But then it's interesting. It's like a very interesting conundrum because he's also a member with the banks on the Financial Stability Board. So I want to say he's playing devil's advocate at the same time for this adoption. So the dynamics behind this are very clown world, if you will. Like I don't know how else to put that. Like,
I mean, that's pretty much it, man. It just makes me sick, and I just don't think we're getting anywhere with who's running the SEC right now, and I don't think we're gonna get anywhere. And Gary Gensler really hasn't had a win. They've had settlements, but never really a win. And with Ripple winning the way that they did, it gives Coinbase, it gives all of these other crypto companies a way to win. I think they've kind of shown what you need to do to win out here, and I just think it's a clown show, man. Like you said, and it's painful to talk about, man. It just makes you so sick. Where could we have been with crypto adoption if we had intelligent, positive crypto enforce? Just some rules, man. Like, what are the rules out here? Why do you tell people to come in and register only to use the information that when they register against them to sue them? Like, nobody's going to come in and register when you're using all the information that they come in and register to sue them, right? Like, it makes me sick to my stomach, man. And I just think Gary Gensler's a terrible, terrible chairman, and he's going to go down in history as one of the worst SEC chairmen. I mean, how much money was lost in 2022 alone with the FTX, Celsius, BlockFi, all of these crypto companies collapsing under his watch, and he was meeting with FTX, Sam Bankman, as he was committing fraud. Like, if you can't see it to the person that you're meeting, and you can't do the due diligence because you're getting paid off to look the other way, you got to go, man. You got to go.
Absolutely. Can I make a prediction? I think I need to come off here soon,
Yeah.
but I want to make a prediction. There was a bill that I was reading not long ago called the removal or exclusion of the term security contract. And that bill, I believe, is going to come out soon. I'm not too sure when, but when that bill comes out, you're going to hear the new bill be enacted or be going through the House at that point, put up by Tom Emmer, which is the Security Clarity Act, which states that the assets that were sold from Ripple to the, not the retail, but the, what's the other one I'm looking for? The institutional investors, the XRP that was sold to the institutional investors will at that point be considered a investment contract asset. And I come to this conclusion because in 2019, Ripple had put out a policy framework which states that they would like to see these bills be implemented, and in implementing those bills, they will have an appointee from the SEC and the CFTC and a few other FIs work within Ripple. And that being said, I also posted a document not long ago. It came out in 2009, and it was the consideration for wondering if they can create a single entity or a single body where they have the CFTC and SEC collaborate and come together at that point, which is interesting because that came from the same policy framework. And I came to this conclusion because India had done that. They had taken their securities government and their commodities government and wrapped them up into one at that point. So that's my prediction. I think we're going to follow what India had done there. I mean, U.S. is just hanging on the sidelines, and I think they're going to follow what other people are doing and be like, that's a great idea. We don't have to do this. I mean, we don't have to pilot and pilot and pilot. We see it being done. We can just copy it, snatch it, grab it, go.
I love it, man. I love it. Let's end there, man. Like you said, my camera's about to die anyways, and it's just been an honor with you, man. I value this time that we spend together. I learned some things, and it's just thank you, man, for all that you do for the space and the time that you've spent talking with me. And I can't wait to see where we go. And hopefully it's not a couple more months before we can get together again, man, and talk about this, because I think it's important. I think a lot of people will get value from this. And like I said, it's just an honor to speak with you, brother.
Thank you. I'm touched. And same for you. I thoroughly enjoy, parlaying with you and just getting to know who you are. You're a very passionate person. Once that chord has been struck and you start talking about it, it's colorful coming out. And I can see what you're talking about because the passion exudes to the screen. So I respect and appreciate having this conversation with you and allowing me to infringe on your time for this hour that we've spoken now. I'm so appreciative for you, man.
The honor's mine. Thank you so much. And hey, keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for what you do for the space. And I'll see you next time, my friend.
Beautiful. Same for you. Hold off. After we stop the recording, I want to just chat with you afterwards still.
I'm going to stop.
Making major moves. We going all in. Like we got nothing to lose. We making moves. We making major moves. We making moves.